wealthy beyond the dreams of avarice, presumably married to a wealthy person. You know, American success story. But how did it proceed? How did she get there from Slovenian immigrant? You know, how did that work for her? How did our system work for this person? So yeah, I'm going to take back what I said about this being a non-story, because even though I don't personally care that she probably maybe circumvented some laws, that doesn't bother me. I think it is useful for us to know. Anytime a public figure can tell a story, and that allows us all to like see that story in a different way. You know, it would be nice if I could tell the story of my friend so-and-so or my cousin so-and-so who has had to deal with a similar situation or gone through similar processes to get to where they are now. I mean, those stories should be valuable too, but they are less valuable because nobody knows this person, and well, not nobody, but nobody but their friends and family knows this person. So it's just a name. It's just a circumstance. It's just like it's anecdotal. It doesn't have that much weight. But here we have someone very much in the public eye, and there will one way or the other over time be a thorough vetting of this story, and from this we will learn something about our immigration system through the experiences of this very famous person. So yeah, in that sense, I guess, in the sense of the hypocrisy of her husband, and in the sense that this story will help us understand our immigration system a little better and how it does or does not work for the people who try to use it. I think this is it's good that this has come out and that somebody's looking into it. Something is happening with it. So I will move on from that, because I now, having contradicted myself and said, on one hand, I don't care about this, and then turned right around and said, oh, actually, I do care about this. But see, that's, if nothing else, excuse me, still getting over my cold weeks later. If nothing else, I feel, I'll pat myself on the back here, almost literally, that the sign of a healthy mind is the ability to change your mind when you discover new evidence or new information. And, I'll do that. I did that here in the space of about 10 minutes. I went from saying one thing about it to thinking something else about it. As I unpacked it more and looked at it more, I learned something, and I changed my opinion about it. And I would hope that we would all do that. And I recommend it to people. Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. I don't remember where that quote comes from, but I think that it is true to a certain extent, that if you're just sticking to something no matter what, that's pretty foolish. You're not learning anything. You are demonstrating that you are not learning things by sticking like that. So I guess that kind of does circle back to saying that I would respect Trump if he were to come out and say, you know what, I've looked into this thing with my wife, and you're right. She did violate some laws when she first came here. She's admitted that to me. We are admitting that to the authorities, and we'll take whatever punishment they deem necessary. And I am rethinking my stance on immigration based on this. I have learned something about immigration and what people have to go through to get here legally. And even if he sticks to everything else about what he said about immigration, but adds on to that, and we are going to have to reconfigure our immigration policy to make it more usable and user-friendly and useful to the people who use it, that at least would be something I could respect, if he could change his mind to that extent, even if in no other way. I'm going to bet. I'll make a bet here, public bet, online, on the radio, on TV, on everything. I'm going to bet that's not what's going to happen. even that small, little tiny change in thinking, change in rhetoric, I'm going to bet that's not going to happen. I don't know what is. I won't bet what he will do or what the campaign will do. I suspect they will try to avoid it. I suspect and predict that they will claim that this is a plot of the liberal media to discredit him. Who knows what? That's what I suspect is going to happen, that it's going to be deny, avoid, lie about, obfuscate, confuse the issue, throw dust in people's eyes, light fires and have smoke everywhere so that nobody can tell anything. And in the end, they will avoid ever having to admit that anything happened. That's my guess. That's my prediction. And you can hold me to that. And you can decide whether I'm a good prognosticator or not based on that. Okay, now that I have gone over that yet again, so we have a couple more stories, and this one is sort of tangentially related. These are both tangentially related, I guess, in that they all contain the T word, the T-man. Here's another one. This is from TalkingPointsMemo.com, entitled "Hispanic Florida GOP Spokesman Leaves the Party Over Donald Trump." Whoa, what a surprise. Wadi Gaitan became the Florida GOP's top spokesman 1 month before Donald Trump entered the Republican primary race. Just over a year later, Gaitan confirmed Monday that he's leaving the party to avoid helping the Republican nominee's campaign any further. Quote, "I'm thankful for my almost 2 years with the Florida GOP. However, moving on gives me a great new opportunity to continue promoting free market solutions while avoiding efforts that support Donald Trump," he said in a statement to BuzzFeed News. Gaitan declined to comment further, but those closest to the conservative, who is of Honduran descent, said he couldn't stand by Trump's repeated attacks on the Hispanic community. His job was getting difficult with the indefensible things being said about immigrants, one anonymous friend told this reporter. Gaitan is credited with the success of Florida's Sunshine Summit, one of the state's most high-profile events of the primary season. He is departing the state party for the Libre Initiative, a conservative nonprofit focused on promoting Hispanic-owned businesses. So I bring this up because it is related, because we have the T word, the Mr. Trump man, and someone has left the party based on what Trump says about immigrants, about, in particular, Hispanic, Latinas. So, in another similar take about Mr. T, this is entitled "Muslim American Olympic Fencer on Trump Immigration Fan." Quote, "I don't have another home to go to." And it reads as follows. Olympic fencer, I don't know if I can pronounce her name, Ibtihaj, I think it's Ibtihaj Muhammad, wants to use the international sporting events to positively change how the Muslim community is perceived, especially in light of GOP nominee Donald Trump's proposed ban on Muslim immigration. In an interview with CNN last week, the fencer, who will be the first Muslim athlete to compete with a hijab, said that Trump's words are very dangerous. Quote, "When these types of comments are made, no one thinks about how they really affect people," she said. "I'm African American. I don't have another home to go to. My family was born here. I was born here. I've grown up in Jersey. All my family's from Jersey. It's like, well, where do we go? I'm hopeful that in my efforts to represent our country well as an athlete, that they change the rhetoric around how people think and perceive the Muslim community," Muhammad said. When Muhammad arrived in Rio, she was quick to diss the GOP nominee at a news conference last Thursday. When asked about her views on Trump's Muslim immigration ban, she responded with, Who? Though she didn't answer the question, she did elaborate on how she hopes to make the biggest impact in Rio. It's really simple. All I have to do is stand on the strip, wear my hijab, and that's part of who I am, Muhammad said, according to NJ.com. But obviously, I hope a medal comes along with that. The saber fencer defeated Ukraine's Olena Kravatska in the round of 32 on Monday. Though she lost against France's Cecilia Berder in the round of 16, she will compete alongside U.S. teammates Mariel Zagunis and Dagmara Wozniak against Poland's team on Saturday. Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought that would maybe, perhaps, possibly be a little longer than that. So there you have two people also talking about Mr. T, who are expressing indignation and inability to accept his stance on immigration. And there, we'll bring this back. That is why the story about his wife is, in fact, important. Contra my earlier statements that it was not important, except based on hypocrisy. It is important because this guy's whole platform is based around immigration and around bashing immigrants in various ways and demonizing them. And, you know, that's dangerous stuff. That's how enemies are made. That's how people become divided amongst themselves into us's and them's, if I can put it like that. So I want to get away from Mr. T for a moment here and go into something else. This is from NPR, and I thought it was pertinent, given that school is starting up soon, very soon, towards the end of this month. And this is entitled, What It's Like to Be College-Bound and Worried About Your Immigration Status. So Maite Lara Ibarra and Larissa Martinez had just finished their senior year of high school when they each decided to go public with their immigration status. Both Texas students came to the U.S. illegally, and they didn't want to keep that fact a secret any longer. Ibarra identified herself on Twitter as one of the 65,000 undocumented youth who graduated high school in the U.S. Martinez revealed her status in the commencement speech she delivered at graduation. Their actions sparked support and pointed criticism. That was more than a month ago. Now, with the media frenzy behind them, they both say they don't regret the choice they made to speak up. Next month, Ibarra heads to the University of Texas, Austin, and Larissa to Yale University. That's no small feat, considering only about half of the 65,000 undocumented high school graduates go on to higher education. Even fewer end up earning a degree. The NPR Ed team connected with them via video chat so they could talk about the challenges they're facing on the road to college. Our hour-long conversation touched on a host of issues, including the Supreme Court's ruling on the Obama administration's program to expand deferred action for early childhood arrivals, and the economic roadblocks facing those who are in the U.S. illegally. So the question, what's been the worst experience you've ever had because you're undocumented? What has been the biggest challenge? Ibarra says, for me, it's basically seeing my parents struggle because they work long hours, they don't get paid enough, they can't really move up. So seeing that has definitely affected me and made me more motivated. Personally, someone attacking me in person, I haven't really seen it in front of my face. It has happened behind my back because I saw it through social media, but no one's ever said anything to my face. Martinez answers the question, it's interesting to see the dynamic of how it works because most people who have bad things to say, they won't come and say it to your face. They'll hide behind their screen and they'll say it there. I feel like the reason why they do that is because it's so much easier to see people as subhuman when you're not looking at them in the eye, when you're not actually thinking this is a human being with a life and a family and a person with dreams whose whole life could be turned around if I keep having this ideology of mine. The next question, how did you feel about the decision that came out from the Supreme Court? the ruling that ended up stalling Obama's immigration actions. Ibarra says, I was really disappointed because I was keeping up with it. And although my parents wouldn't qualify for DACA, I do know some people who would have really benefited from the DACA expansion. I remember when DACA came out, and I was 14, and I know you have to be 15, so my mom was always reminding me about how when I turn 15, I have to start applying. I remember telling her, oh, I don't want to apply. What's the point? She made me apply, and I learned it entitled me to some things, and I'm secured from deportations, but at the same time, it's not much. I'm grateful I have it because I know people want to at least have a Social Security number, but it's not what I'm looking for. It's not something that's going to help me too much. I know it's different for a lot of people. Martinez answers, I don't have it. I don't qualify for it because I came into the country too late. And even with the DACA extension, I still don't qualify, and my parents don't qualify for DACA either. Really, the Supreme Court decision itself didn't impact my life directly. It wasn't going to change either way, but I mean, obviously I was disappointed because that's the life of 5 million people who could have felt that sense of security. At the same time, it's sort of a false security because the next president could come and take it away. The next question, so how are you feeling about tuition? Martinez says, Yale offered me a full ride, which included tuition, room and board, meals, travel. There's a student contribution that everyone's required to pay, but they know I can't work on campus, so I went and talked to them. I went to ask, am I going to be able to work? I just needed to know, and they ended up raising my scholarship to pay for student contributions, so I'm set. The next question is, so that's something a lot of people don't think about, that work study isn't an option for a lot of people. Martinez says, yeah, it's difficult. They asked me, how will you pay for student contribution? And I told them my mom said she'd work longer hours and that she'd work more to get the money. Obviously, the student contribution is like $5,000 a year, which I mean for the education I'm receiving, it's like nothing in comparison. But it is a burden for my mom. Not a burden in a bad way, but it is a heavy load to put on her because it's just her working. It is difficult because I know she'd be willing to sacrifice that for me, but it's the fact that I have to keep asking for more. I can't do anything for myself. It feels really, you feel a lot of sense of frustration. So the next question is, even though you have DACA, your parents obviously aren't protected. How does that affect the way you think about things? Ibarra says, it makes me a little bit cautious just because I remembered when I first tweeted it out and I saw the reactions. I didn't tell my mom until like 3 days later because I figured she'd see it on TV eventually. She was extremely worried. She was so worried, and my mom, she already worries a lot. So when she saw that and she was just freaking out, she was just thinking the worst. We're going to have to go back to Mexico. So just seeing the worry that my parents have, it makes me cautious to not just say my status to just anyone. At the same time, I shouldn't hide this from someone. Like, if anything, it doesn't define me. It makes me stronger. It makes me motivated. But seeing them like that, I don't like it, so it makes me feel guilty for coming out. Martinez says, I completely understand. It's a difficult situation to be in because it's like, yeah, you're protected, but it's silly. They're not thinking about the fact that if they were to deport your parents, you're protected, but you're going to be here with no one. No one really thinks about that. I just don't comprehend how humans cannot feel compassion toward the situation of separating families. I don't understand that. It's sad to think that's the way this world works. So the next question is, do you have extra anxiety about going away to college when a lot of these issues related to your family are still very much in the air? Ibarra says, my tuition is completely covered. However, everything else I would have to pay out of pocket, like room and board. I thought I would be able to make up enough scholarship money, but scholarships in general are really hard to find. I didn't make up as much as I needed, so I just thought I'll live at home. I can't really take out loans or work, and I wasn't going to place that burden on my family, you know. I already have another older sister that goes to school, and that would just be another thing to worry about. So I don't have to worry about leaving my parents, but if I do end up living on campus, it's only 15, 20 minutes. It will still worry me because I know my parents will worry about me. My mom constantly tells me how worried she is, that people at school are going to know who I am. They're not going to like me. They're going to bully me. And you know, it's just like any other mother. Martinez says, For me, it's different. I'm worried in the sense that I don't have my family right with me, and it's something has to and if something was to happen to them, I can't get there fast enough to do something about it myself. So I mean, it's hard to think, what if they get deported? What am I going to do about it? I feel a bit of guilt leaving them after revealing this, but at the same time, I'm leaving them with all the support I have from my friends, from family friends we've made over the years. I know there are enough good people that protect them and will watch out for them while I'm not there. The way I see it, if there are people who don't accept me due to my documentation, they're probably people I wouldn't want to be around anyway. But I have realized that most people are interested in knowing more. Like, they'll approach me and say, "Hey, Larissa, can we talk? Can I ask you a couple of questions?" And I'm like, "Sure." It's actually like the opposite. I'm here to help people understand, to show them the other side. Ibarra says, "Yeah, definitely. I had orientation just a few weeks ago, and I had a lot of people come up to me and ask questions. They were so interested, and they're actually supportive. It was just really nice to see how interested people were, and now that they have this information, I can clarify a lot of stereotypes about people like us." So the next question is, what have you learned from this experience? How has it changed the way you view the world? Ibarra says, "Good question. It's taught me that sometimes it's really easy to just focus on what you're going through and not think about the other millions of undocumented people. And I had always been like that. I had always just focused on my family, which is just, it's normal and okay. But the people I've met from all of this that are in the same situation, it definitely made me feel more passion, kind of a sense of responsibility to help these people or do something that's going to help them, because the majority of them are adults and they tend to be quiet because they're scared. The last generation was always taught to keep it quiet. Never say where you're from. Don't mention it. But this new generation definitely has more of a voice. So if anything, it's taught me that I have a voice and I need to use it efficiently so I can help people in the same situation." Martina says, "Since I moved here to the U.S. when I was 13, I know what life is like in a different country. So I always had this idea of America being this place where everyone would accept you, where you had an equal chance, an equal opportunity to be someone in life. And I think that slowly, as I began seeing issues, and not just toward undocumented immigrants, but issues of inequality toward women, toward minorities, toward a lot of things, I realized this country is far from being perfect. But that's not to say I'm not grateful for everything it's given me. I just realized that there's a lot of change that still needs to happen." So I thought that was an interesting article to read, because you get the first-person voices of people who are here and who are undocumented and who are dealing with that. And I think that's always important. It's unfortunate that, I try to get more people on the show to speak up like that, but there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of worry. And I thought that one thing that this article brought out and could have made more of is the worry, the tension, and the stress that goes along with being undocumented and living in this country. It's really a burden to carry around with you at all times. I mean, if you can imagine, if you can think of anything in your life that has just been an ongoing concern, that just never goes away, you always have it there. It's always, maybe it's a health problem, maybe it's a family member with a health problem, or an alcohol or drug problem, or a situation at work where you never feel really confident that your job is secure. There's always this sense that, like, hey, anything could happen and I could end up on the street. Anything like that. If you can think of that and remember what that's like, and imagine how that translates to persons who are undocumented, who are here, who are constantly and always concerned and worried about their situation. There is never, any time of the day or night, you wake them up, it's always like immediate stress. And that takes a toll on you over time. Anytime you have something that's just endlessly hanging over your head, whatever it may be, a big debt that you're trying to pay off, student loans, if you're a student and you've got student loans outstanding, credit card debt, I don't know. I mean, there's any number of things. I think if you can translate that for yourself and think, what does that feel like to me? And then realize this is what immigration status feels like to the millions of undocumented people who are here. It is just something that even when you're not thinking about it consciously at all, it's hovering in the background and it's just weighing down on you. Sometimes just a little bit, sometimes a lot, but it's always there. It's like someone pushing on down on your shoulders at every moment. I have a story that I like to tell about my dog who's since passed away, a very old dog. When we used to take her on trips, on vacation, she loved to sit in the middle, in the truck. I had a pickup truck. There's an armrest on the side in between the two front seats. And her favorite spot to sit was right on that armrest, looking out the front window. But she would always lean against me. I don't know why, but I was driving. For some reason, I was always driving, and she would always lean on me. And it's a little 10, 15-pound dog, not very heavy, but just imagine this little weight against you for hours. And I would find myself drifting to the left because she was pushing from the right, and it would just, before maybe an hour or two had passed, I was all the way leaning on the left-hand window door, and she was leaning on me, and we were like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, at an angle, and I would push her over and just like, stop leaning on me. And she'd, sit up straight for a while, and then after a minute or so, she'd start leaning again. It was just this constant pressure, very light pressure, not a big deal, but over time, it just drove me crazy because it felt like, I don't know what it felt like. I can't describe it, but it was like someone just pushing on you constantly, over and over. And that's kind of how I imagine the stress of this to be. It's just this constant weight that never, ever, ever entirely goes away. Okay, with that, having said that, I've used up my time. I just realized that I am at the end of it. You have been listening to CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana 104.5 FM. I thank you for joining in, tuning in, however you like to describe your experience. I'll see you next week, or I'll see you on Friday on UPTV. I'll see you anytime, day or night, on YouTube. You name it, there is a way to find us, and we'll see you later.